Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for this morning's session. It's one of our webinars in the series of webinars that we're running for the Report Designer 2025 Digital Badge. So this is session number 3. And today we're looking at tables and variables. We'll probably spend around about 45 minutes running through that with you this morning. Before we get stuck into that one, a little bit of housekeeping, just so you know what's going to be happening. Obviously, as usual, if you've attended webinars before, you'll be aware of this, but just in case anyone's new, obviously you'll be sharing my screen, so you'll see me working in the software today. A lot more meaningful than just working from some slides. So loads of demo today. Obviously, we do have some slides as well, just to give us a little bit of structure and to break up that presentation a little bit. Now, during the session, you will find if you've got a microphone and you've enabled it as you joined the session, you will find it's muted automatically. You can't unmute yourself. So you can't verbally ask us any questions. But if you do have any comments or questions you want to make during the session, and I'll try and get you engaged with that questions panel a little bit, then you will need to submit them via that questions panel. Just click the little speech bubble icon, which is on the toolbar down the right-hand side of your screen. It'll expand the panel. You'll get access to that box in the bottom right-hand corner. So that's where you can start typing. So anything and everything, pop them in there, click send, and we'll try and pick them up. Now, when I say we, we've got Abby, Laura, Matt, and Tina on hand today. So expecting to be quite busy, particularly with Report Designer. We're probably going to have loads of questions. Keep them coming, keep them busy. We'll try and answer as much as we can. Obviously, we'll prioritize questions relating to what we're actually talking about today, because we get loads of questions on these sessions about, well, which report should I run for my last financial year and things like that. We can't really answer those today. If we got time, we'll have a stab, but we will prioritize those questions relating to what we're actually looking at in today's session, which is tables and variables. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides, those are available via the handout option. The usual 2 options available, the full color slides and what we term the print friendly. So if you want to print one out and maybe make your own notes. However, everything we do cover, that is included and available from our help center. Now, as normal, this webinar is being recorded. A link to the recording will be included on your follow-up email. You'll get that round about an hour after you finish. And that will also include links so you can register for our upcoming webinars. They're all free to attend, just in case of giving up a little bit of your time to attend them. So loads of sessions on there. We'll shortly be adding in all of the October sessions. So do watch out for those. I think they'll be available by the end of next week. And also there'll be a link to our recordings page. So if you've missed any of the previous sessions and you would like a recap, it's a great resource. So do watch out for that follow-up email. These are the sessions that we're running as part of this webinar series for Report Designer 2025. So we've run sessions 1 and 2 already. If you didn't get a chance to attend them, or maybe some of the sessions you can't attend this month, we are repeating them next month as well. So plenty of scopes, or maybe you take in some of what we covered today, but actually you maybe go away and have a look at it and think, actually, I could do with attending that again. Sign up again. You're more than welcome to attend a second time, or watch out for the recording. So we're going to cover tables and variables in today's session. If you haven't signed up for the other sessions yet, they're all introductory sessions, so not too in-depth. Then remember that link will be included on your follow-up email. Right, so this is what we're going to be covering in today's session. So brief introduction. We're looking at editing reports, adding variables or data fields, the hands-on task. So I'm going to get you using some of the information in the Help Center today to try and find some of the information. So finding the correct variable for the information that you need for a report. We're going to look at editing a layout as well. So editing a report and editing a layout are pretty much the same, but I'm going to show you that just to emphasize that, because there'll still be people sat there, well, yeah, you've shown us a report, but what if I want to do my invoice layout? It's pretty much the same when it comes to data fields or variables. And then I want to touch on transaction variables as well, which is starting to get more into I suppose, the more in-depth area. but we will cover that just to explain it in a bit more detail. When we ran this last time, people found that section really useful, hopefully just to clarify things a little bit in your head when it comes to transactions and the information they contain. And then just right at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support. And if there are any outstanding questions that maybe I can get stuck into as well, I'll join in with those and maybe run a few extra demos here and there if needed. But keep your questions coming, do engage with us. As I say, the guys are on hand to answer as many of those as they can. So just as a brief introduction, and it's probably quite a similar introduction to each of the sessions we run. But if you're not that familiar with the Report Designer yet, so obviously it's almost like software in its own right, the Report Designer side of the software, but it's a really powerful tool. It enables you to create and amend both reports and layouts in Sage 50 accounts. Now, variables are used to basically pull information from your data. So if you're probably as old as me and you've maybe remember when it was really futuristic when you did mail merge, if you were doing a Word document, that type of thing, it's a similar sort of principle. It's got to pull information into a set position on your report or layout. It's going to pull that from your accounting data. So that would include things like dates, addresses, and also values. So it's going to pull that into your reports. Now, variables, as they were originally known, and people tend to still refer to them as variables, but these days they're also known as data fields as well. So if I do chop and change between the two, apologies for that. But each one of those will contain one piece of information. So whether it's pulling it from like if your company information, pulling that from the company preferences area, it might be customer information. So pulling a specific bit of information from their record. So as I say, each variable or data field, it contains one bit of information. Now the variables or the data fields will be grouped into what's known as groups or tables. So just think of it as sort of a way of organizing those. So the likes of your company information, so your company name, your address, your VAT registration number, that type of thing, it's contained within the company preferences area. So there would be a table for that. Similar for your customer information from their record. That would be, again, contained in a different table. So tables will contain a number of variables. Now you might find when we start working through the demo or you're looking at it yourself, that some variables will have the same name, but they belong to different tables. Now it does mean that, well, they're not the same. So each table, remember, each table stores information about a different thing. So the name variable in the customer table is different to the name variable from the supplier table, for instance, or what we term the purchase ledger table. So what we'll do is we'll just get straight away, we'll just get stuck into some demonstrations because it's much easier to show you rather than sitting here trying to describe it to you, and a bit more meaningful to you as well. I think when it comes to dealing with the Report Designer, it's much more of a visual thing to sort of learn about. Right, so quick example. What we're going to do is we're going to go into customers. We're going to pop into reports, and we'll kind of stick with basics today. So we tend to do that when we talk about the Report Designer. We don't want over complex reports in the background just distracting you about how complex they look. So we're going to go into something like the customer list, which, should we just preview it very quickly? I'll just accept all of that criteria. It's a very basic report, this one. I think if we learn about Report Designer internally as well, this is normally the type of report you would start with, working with lists. So you've got things like the account reference for each customer, the name, the contact name, the telephone number, the email address, assuming that's been entered within the record. So you can see these two at the top. I'm going to be using them a little bit later for the transaction part of the demo. So I don't actually have a contact name or telephone number or email address in those records. Maybe that's a way of actually identifying gaps in your or missing information in your records by running a report, just got a blank. So it's a very basic report that we're going to be looking at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this report. So I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go into edit at the top. And similar to when we edited an invoice layout in session number 2, it will open the design of the report in this instance within the report designer. Now, not a lot of information, very simple design this one. I'll zoom in a bit so you can see this a little bit clearer. So this is the design of the customer list report. And if I just hover over this bit at the top, which if you probably guess, it's going to show you the company name. Now, when we hover over a particular variable, you'll see this sort of little box appears. Stay there for a little while, and then it will disappear as long as if I don't move the mouse. I'll keep coming back to it though. But in that box, it's telling me it's a variable, and then it says company.name. Now, the syntax or the format for a variable when it appears on a report or a layout is the table name, full stop, and then the variable name. So company.name, company being the table name being the actual variable itself or the data field. So company table, and then it's the name variable. So if I do just quickly, I'll click the preview option at the bottom. It'll show us that report again. And we can see mine in this case, the top one there, it pulls through my company name, which is called Sage Demos V32. So nice and simple. Now, in addition to the tables that contain your data, there are also a number of tables that contain variables which simply relate to the report that you're running. So there's going to be things like a report table and a criteria table. So the report table is going to contain variables which are specific to the report. For example, things like the page number, the date, the time. So it'll pull that and include that information in that position when you actually run the report. So that's not contained anywhere in the software. It's just going to pull that information through in the relevant position at the time when you run the report, when it was created. The criteria is this information here. So that's going to pull through and show you in this instance the criteria that you specified. So when you run the report, if there's any criteria, you can specify it, and as long as that information, those variables are included on the report, it will include it. You might remember when I ran it, I just accepted that default report criteria. So it's basically going from customer from is blank all the way through to all the Zs, which would be the last sort of account reference that you can actually have. And also show active stroke inactive, we've got it set to include both. Right, now if we switch back to the designer view at the bottom, this little icon at the bottom here next to where it says page 1 of 1 in my instance. So switch back to the design view. I'll zoom in again so you can see that. And in the design view, if we go to the details section, so this sort of section here, and what we'll do is I'll just hover over the first variable that's on there. So the first one, when I hover over it, again, it says variable, and it says sales underscore ledger. So again, that's the name of the table or the group. And then it says sales ledger dot account underscore ref, so account reference. So account ref being the variable name. So you've got other ones as well. So salesledger.name, hover over that one, it's salesledger.contactname. Telephone number, salesledger.telephone, and then email, salesledger.email. So you can see all on this report, because it's just customer list, it's pulling basic information through from essentially the customer record, or in report design terms, pulling it through from what we term the sales ledger table. Now I'll get you involved a little bit at this point. So use the questions box. I want you to submit a guess at this one. So approximately, how many variables do you think there are on what we term the sales ledger table? So how many bits of different information could we potentially, variable-wise, how many variables would there be in that sales ledger table? So how many different bits of information can you pull from a customer record onto your report? How many do you think there are? Now it can vary. So do you think there are 20? Do you think there are 50, 100, more? Let us know. So things like an address, for instance, there's 5 lines in address. So there are 5 different address variables. So loads of guesses coming through. Anything, what's the lowest we've had so far? So a few of you put 25 or 10. 10 coming through there. Christine, a few more than that. Philip, no, so it wasn't. Wendy, you guessed 9,999, so not quite that many. Well, there are loads of that, and that's just the sales ledger table. So think about your software. You just in customers alone, there are, and I tried to count these earlier, and I got 173. Maybe don't quote me as gospel on that one, but about 173 variables just from the sales ledger alone. Now, the ones you'll have available and that are usable to you will vary depending on your version of Sage 50 accounts, and also the variant that you're using as well. So obviously there's different features, not too recent, but things like email addresses, it increased from 3 to 6 in recent versions. Simple things like custom fields within the customer account, again, increased from 3 to 6 in fairly recent versions. So again, depending what version you're on, you may have different options. Right, we're going to stay within the customer list. What I'm going to do is just to give you an idea about if you're editing a report and you want to include information, I'm just going to make some space first of all. So I'm going to get rid of the email address from this report. So I just click on it. You can see it highlights it. I'll do the title first. Now I'll do the one in the main details section. And I'm just going to press delete on the keyboard just to make a bit of space for us. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, right, well, what I want on this report is I want the customer credit limit. Now, yes, there are reports that will include that, and you know, from your customers list, you could send that off to Excel already. So remember that first session we ran? Think about what you need and what options you've got available before you actually go and make changes. Sometimes there's much easier ways of cracking the same nut. But just to give you an idea, we've made a bit of space on this report. And what I want to do is I want to insert the credit limit from the customer's account. So on the toolbar at the top, you've got this option to add data field. Now, if you don't have this toolbar displayed, you can go to the view menu and let's find where it is. Can't see it for looking. I'll come back to that one. My mind's gone completely blank there. Right. Anyway, we can go to the toolbox menu as well, and we've got the option there, add data field. So either way, it'll do the same thing. So we just click add data field. and then we click approximately where we want to insert that information. So you'll see as I move the mouse into this sort of the end of the details section, it turns to a cross, and then I just click, and this Add Data Field window will appear. So this gives me a list of the tables or the groups of variables, essentially, that I have available for this type of report or layout that we're using. Now, the one we're after, it relates to the customer account. So in this case, it's within the sales ledger group or the sales ledger table. And I can expand that. And this is where I mentioned what we got you guessing at, how many variables are available. So they're all in alphabetical order. So I just drag the mouse down so you give you an idea of the type of information that is available. So all the way down to web address. But the one I'm after is credit limit. So just a case of finding it on the list. You can actually type that in at the top as well to try and find it if you know what it's called. But I'm just going to highlight credit limit on the list there, and we'll OK that. And it pops it onto the report for me. So if you just click off that, hover back over it, you'll see that we now get that floating box that says variable sales ledger credit limit. So again, sales ledger is the table, credit limit is the group. Now, if we just delete that for a moment, other way we can do that as well is we've got the variables option on down the side. Again, if you don't have that one, if you just go to view and there's an option called variables, we just switch that one, or we just switched it off there. If I switch it back on, we'll get it down the side here. And obviously that can be pinned to the side. Sometimes it's a little bit quicker. It just depends how you like working. So again, if we wanted to do the same thing, just a case of expanding sales ledger, I can then scroll down, find the one I'm after. So I'm after credit limit. If I double click it, it'll pop it on there for me. So nice and easy to do that. Now, what you might find if there's not enough information on there, so let's just pick up on another one. So let's say I want to add company registration number as well. If I double click that one, you may find if there's not enough space when I double click it, it'll just sort of increase the section height, and then it'll pop the next sort of variable on the line below. So that means it's going to be less compact on the report then. If I just quickly preview that at the bottom, it'll give you an idea now what that's going to look like. So you can see we've now got gaps, and that's because it's had to wrap it down. So let's just go back to design view. We'll get rid of that company registration number, and then we'll move that or reduce the section height back to approximately what it was. Just coming back to this toolbar at the top, while I remember. If we can't see this toolbar, the one that says where it says Add Data Field, what we can just do, right click. That's what I just couldn't remember. My mind went totally blank there. And what we're after is just enabling the one that's called Toolbox Basic. So if you're in this position where you can't see that, right click, Toolbox Basic, you should have this little additional toolbar that can be moved around to make it a bit more compact at the top as well, if needed. Right, obviously what we can do as well, we could put a title on that one as well. So that's something that we did cover in the last session. So if we wanted to do that, we'd be adding that as a text object. So where we added the things like invoice number in, invoice date, account reference, order number, we added that as text onto the invoice layout in session number 2. Formatting is pretty much the same as well. Again, we covered that in session number 2. So if we inserted the credit limit and we wanted we want to make sure it looks the same as the other information, we can just highlight one of the other ones. So a telephone number, and we can see it says in this instance, or we'll do contact name. For whatever reason, it's got this style of criteria details specified to it. So I click onto credit limit, and I can just make sure it's got the same style. I can obviously change that manually as well if needed. So if you prefer a different font, or you need things to print that much bigger, or maybe in a different color, you can do that. Now, as I mentioned, different ledger reports are linked to different tables. So again, if we just view the variables panel, I'll switch that one back on. So we can see these are the tables that are linked to this customer's account. So as a customer report, you've got access to the sales ledger information. You can pull information through onto the report from the customer's account. But you'll notice I don't have anything relating to suppliers. So I can't pull any supplier information onto this one. If we just close out of this report, I'm not going to save any changes. Close out of that. We'll go into suppliers, into reports. We'll do virtually the same one, so supplier details this time, and supplier list. And we'll just edit that one. And again, if we have a look at the variables panel down the side, rather than sales ledger, we've now got purchase ledger. So this enables us to essentially bring or pull through information from the supplier's account onto this specific report. So again, you can see a lot of the information will be the same, such as things like audit header, audit split, company information, which relates to your company information, not the customer or the supplier. If you want that, it's the relevant ledger that you need to access. So pretty much the same tables, but as I say, rather than it being the sales ledger, you've got access to the purchase ledger. And again, if we expand the purchase ledger, you'll see we've got loads of the same variables as well. So if you're familiar with the customer side, it's pretty much the same for the supplier side. Right, okay. So that's a brief introduction. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you about finding the correct variable now. So there's that many of them. So we mentioned there was about 173 or so variables just from the sales ledger alone. But how do you find what it is? Yeah, it's great once you've got going and you know what those names are. But how do you know? How can you find out what they are in the first place? So great resource. I'm going to share a link to this in a moment with you, and I'm going to get you involved with this one as well. So if I access the Help Center, and I'm just going to search for tables and variables. And it's this option here, tables and variables used by the report designer. So we'll just access that. Now, a bit of a disclaimer on this one. The bit of the resource I'm interested in is this section here. Looks like it's based around an older version of Sage 50 accounts, but it's still a really useful resource when it comes to designing your reports, and you'll still be able to work through it. So as an example, all I would do, excuse me, if I wanted to go into customers, or if I click customers, so it'll let you navigate through. If you need to scroll across to the right for whatever reason, what you can do is you can just use your cursor keys to move left and right. But basically, if you point at something, so let's say I point at I want to find out what the name of the customer, what variable does it use? All I do is I just find that bit of information that I would like to pull through onto my report, and the little box that pops up, it'll tell you. So in this case, it's sales ledger name. So if I was looking to insert the customer's name onto the report or layout, that's what I'm after. Now I could go a bit further. I could go into let's say I go into the customer record, and let's say it's credit control. So credit limit we've already just inserted onto a report. I'll just hover over that, and you can see the name of the table and the variable pop up. So sales ledger credit limit. So you can do that for just about all of them. It's just a case of pointing at them, and it'll tell you the name of the table and the individual variable itself. Now, you don't have any navigation really on this option, so if you've clicked past what you need, there's not really a way of getting back to it. What I would recommend you do, just press F5 at that point, and it reloads the page for you. So it should reload this option for you. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this link. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into the chat box for you so that you can actually click it. So I'll send that across to you. So that's in the chat box. So I'm going to get you using it. So remember, F5 to refresh that. Now I'm going to pop back to my slides for a moment. What I'd like you to do is have a go over that resource. So use that link to the Help Center article to find the following information. So see if you can find it out. So click the link and then see what you would find for things like the customer account balance. How would you find it? You're going to go into customers. If the balance is listed, just hover over it. It'll tell you the table and the variable. Then try a few others. Remember, F5 to reset, sort of set that list. That's probably the easiest way to do that. So supplier VAT registration number, where would you get that? Well, you've got to go into a supplier record to see that information. So give it a try. Invoice due date, where would you see that information? Also, the transaction extra reference, which is a very common one, that one. So again, how would you find that? How can you navigate to that information? So you were looking to insert it on your report. Where on earth do you start? So try that article, give it a go. Again, it's based around a slightly older version, that one, the look and feel of that, but you'll still be able to find the information that you're after. Chat box should be down the side, Jessica. It should be on the toolbar down the side. If not, what I'll do is I'll quickly pop that into the questions panel as well, just in case anyone is having difficulty accessing the chat. If you're copying the one from the questions panel, you will need to copy it and then paste it. It won't let you just click on it. But if you go to the chat box, you should find that one on your toolbar. It will let you click the link. So give it a try. See how you get on. Just give that a minute or two, just while it gives you a chance to have a go over that. Lisa, you just mentioned there, what if you need a variable isn't showing on the default view? So again, it depends what it is you're after. Do you want to give me an example? So I'll start running through some of them now. So I'm sure you've had a little play with that now. So if we go to customers as an example, so the first one that was mentioned was the customer account balance. So we can just click at customers, and if we hover over the balance column, it'll show you sales ledger dot balance, supplier VAT registration number. If I just click across to suppliers, and I'm looking for the VAT registration number. So I'll go to, as if I was going to edit a record, and there's the VAT registration number here. We just hover over it. So what we know, it's a purchase ledger VAT reg number. So it'll help you find that. Remember that sort of syntax. It's table, then variable, split by that sort of full stop. Third one was the invoice due date. So if I'll just F5 that one, just to reload it. I'll go into invoices and credits. I'll access an invoice. And then we've got the due on in the top right. So if we just, again, just hover over that one, it says invoice, so invoice table dot payment due date. So hopefully you got that one, bit of a curveball, that one. And then we've got transaction extra reference, so quite a common one that people like to try and access. It's just gone blue there. I'll just reload that. So again, F5 to reload. So if you go into customers, we go into the activity. So where can we find the extra reference? It's in this bottom box. So if we just, again, hover over that, and you'll see in that box, it's coming up audit split. That's the name of the table, extra ref. So just going back to Lisa, your question about analysis fields. If I go into a customer record, onto the defaults, you've got the analysis fields here. Now they have been renamed on this one, and as I mentioned earlier, this is based around an older version. So on the newer versions, the up-to-date versions that you're going to be using, you'll have up to 6 custom fields. If anyone wants to learn about custom fields, we've got Laura going to be running a webinar next week on custom fields. When you get your links on the follow-up email, get yourself registered for that one. Quite an interesting one to attend. You'll add that bit of extra flexibility potentially to your reports as well. So it's just a case of navigating through the software to where you'd normally see that information, and then hover over it, and it should help you find that. Right, we'll close out of that one. So good resource to have a go of. What I'll quickly do at this stage, I'm just going to close out of that, and I'm going to pop into invoices and credits, and we'll just highlight an invoice, go to print. I'll select a layout. I've already got this one flagged as a favorite, so we'll just highlight it and then edit it. And again, this is maybe something you saw if you attended the session number 2. But as you can see, you've got a similar sort of thing. Again, you would just hover over something and find what it is you're after. Again, you've got the variables. The variables in this case are those tables, those groups of variables. It relates to whatever it is that you're looking at. So again, it says sales ledger, because you might want to pull through customer information, but it doesn't give you access to the purchase ledger table. So pretty much the same, just different tables and different variables that you have available to you. Now, what I want to do over the last few minutes that we've got is I want to quickly cover transaction information, so transaction variables. It's something that confuses a lot of people. So what I want to try and do is just try and explain it in a little bit more detail. Now, when we talk about transaction variables and tables, there are 2 main tables. There's what we term a record table and a transaction table. So a record, it's going to pull through things like information from the customer record, the supplier record, maybe the product record itself. But there's also transaction tables. And I'm going to give you a quick example. So we've got 2 customers here, and I'm going to go into the activity just so we can see them. And what we've got here is we've got 2 invoices against this customer. So one is transaction 123 reference wise, and then we've got one transaction 12, or the reference 124. So 2 separate invoices. So entered separately, they're recorded separately, and each one is just a single item line. If we switch to the other customer that I'd selected, you can see at the top we've got 1 transaction, but that invoice this time has actually got 2 parts. It shows us that in the bottom box. So you might be familiar with it from transaction grouping. So grouping occurs when you enter the likes of, say, a bank payment. You enter it on the same screen. You use the same bank account reference, the date and reference itself. And as long as they're consecutive, when you save that, it would group those transactions together. If you're doing a batch invoice or credit, you enter them on the same screen. They're consecutive. As long as they're for the same customer or supplier, use the same date, same reference. When you save it, it'll group it together. So you'll have this, what we term a grouped transaction. So one item at the top, which is the total of the invoice value, but down below on this bottom box, you've got the breakdown. So the top bar is what you would term, or what we refer to as the header transaction, the top level. So any grouping and all its values grouped together. The bottom part is what we would term the splits. So the individual items on that invoice or whatever the transaction is that you're looking at. So top level grouped is what you would term the header. Bottom box in this instance, the item line detail, is what you term the split information. Now, if we go to, again, we'll stick with customers. I'll just highlight these two, so only those two are going to be included on my report. And if we pop into reports, customer activity, and if I run the customer activity summary to begin with, and I'll just preview that, just accept all of that criteria. And let's maximize it and zoom in a bit so you can see the information that's included on it. Even with my glasses, I can hardly see that information when it's just the standard size. So what we've got is that 1A customer, you've got the two invoices listed, 123 and 124, so two separate invoices. In the bottom or the next customer down, that 2B customer, it's got that one invoice. It's got where everything is totaled together, where it's grouped it, the two items, it's grouped it together. So we got a total for that one. So that's the summary. It's showing us what we would term, I suppose, what we would term header level. And we can check that by just clicking edit at the top. Again, when you're previewing a report or a layout, if you click edit, it'll take you into the report designer, another way you can access that. So it takes us into the design. Let's just knock that down and we'll zoom in so we can see this a little bit clearer. It's a bit more complex than the last report we looked at. But the main details section here, this is where you've got all your variables that are pulling in this case, the transaction information onto the report. So if you just hover over the first one, you can see for the transaction number, we hover over that one, that variable, it's saying the variable is audit header tran number. So it's pulling it from the audit header table and it's the tran number variable. If we keep going across, the transaction type, it's audit header type. The date, audit header date. The reference, audit header invoice reference. If you hover over all of these in turn, you'll find that even the amounts, they're coming from what we would term the audit header table, where it's grouped that information together. Let's close out of that one. Now, if we do the same for the customer activity detail this time, so again, just preview it. And what we see this time on the report is we see the breakdown. So nothing changes for that first customer because these are individual transactions. But for the second customer, it's got that one invoice, but with two item lines. So on the detailed report, it's actually showing you what you term the split information. So it's showing you the breakdown, the individual item lines. And this time, if we go into edit that one, now the report pretty much looks identical design-wise. But this time, if we look at the details and start hovering over some of those variables, so the transaction number this time, it's saying audit split tran number. Previously, it was audit header tran number. So again, if we start hovering over them, just as we move across, you'll find that all of the ones on this report are classed as audit split. So that's where they're bringing them from. So I wanted to cover that because it's very tempting, and I'm sure some of you will maybe have come across this already, to start adding in additional information. But there are certain things to be careful of. I'm going to give you a quick example. So let's close back out of this one. I'm going to go back to the summary report. We'll edit this one. And let's say for this report, we want to add in the extra reference. Now, the extra reference itself is not recorded at the sort of the grouped level. It's recorded at sort of item line level. So the split level, what we term the split level. So this report, if we just quickly preview it, I'll just click on the preview option at the bottom there. I'll just accept all those defaults. And you can see for the second customer, we've got transaction 2616 saying there's 2 items and it's £240. So £240 in total on this account. Now let's say we go and use this report and we want to add in, for whatever reason, we want to add in the extra reference. Now I'll make a little bit of space for that one in the details section, and I'm going to add in that variable. Now remember that variable, if I was looking for it, I could have gone via that article to find out what it is, but this time it's an audit split. So on the audit split table, and what I'm after is the extra ref, that one there. So if I click onto that one, it'll pop it on there for me. Now I've got a mix now of variables which are audit header, and I've got this one which is audit split. And that's something you just shouldn't do on the report in the details section. And the reason for that, I'm going to show you. If I preview it, so all I've done is I've added in that reference, but what we've now got for that second customer, I'll just zoom in first and I'll scroll down a bit so you can see it. What we've now got is we've got the 2 transactions listed. So the individual items. So it's basically repeating the same information. So it's actually the first split. Obviously, I just haven't keyed in an extra reference in this case, but that's showing me the first split, all the relevant details for that one, and then it's showing me the second split. So things to be careful of. It's now, because it's repeated that, one for each of the item lines. So we duplicated information, and the total is still working off. We're still pulling through the audit header value for that first part of the transaction. For the second part, we're pulling through the audit header information again. So we got 240 repeated, and therefore it's just doubled. It doubled that value. So that's something to watch out for if you are adding variables to transaction reports. So be careful with that one. Right, okay. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an insight into tables and variables. Loads to go at. So if you want to find out more, remember in our help center, there's the reports and layout section. The tables and variables, I've included a link on the slides as well, but nice and easy to find. If you just go to the help center, just search for tables and variables, it will find that article that we were using earlier on in the demonstration, and also an article in there for adding a data field. So if you want to go back to the basics, how to add one, that's where you'll find it. Okay, loads of questions been coming through, but I think we're just about on top of those. So you've kept everyone really busy today. So any last minute questions, pop them in there. Just click that little speech bubble icon, give it a click, it'll expand. You'll get access to that box at the bottom. Pop in your question or your comment, click send. We'll try and pick those up over the next couple of minutes. If we don't get a chance, I'll just try and reply to you later on today. Remember, if you want a copy of the handout, you can download that now. A link is included on the follow-up email though, so watch out for that one. When you click the link, it will download it automatically, so have a look in your downloads folder, and that's where you'll find a copy of your slides if you do that. Just while I'm giving you a chance to pop those final questions in, loads of webinars coming up. Do check them out. Links are included on your follow-up email. Whether it's attending the live sessions or accessing the recordings, there are loads available. So do check them out when you get that follow-up email. Or if you can't wait, head along to sage.co.uk/webinars. So it brings us to the end of the session. Many thanks for attending. Hope you have enjoyed it and found it useful, particularly for those of you that are very, very new to the Report Designer. Maybe you've never touched it before prior to the start of this webinar series. Keep coming. We've got loads more introductory sessions as well. So we'll be covering things like filters, report criteria, groups and sections. There's a number of webinars just to almost like point you in the right direction to give you an idea of what's possible. Now, as you leave the session today, there will be an opportunity to complete the survey. We'd really appreciate it if you can do that. Take that minute, should be about a minute max. If you want to add a bit more detail, you can. There's an opportunity on there as well to add any thoughts and ideas that you'd like to share with us about how we can improve webinars, what you like, didn't like, topics you'd like to see covered going forward. Is it just more of the same that you want? Let us know. Your follow-up email will be with you in around about an hour's time. So watch out for that one. A link to the recording will be included, and do get yourself registered for the other sessions as well. Right, I think the questions are drying up, so we're just about up to speed there. Again, apologies if I haven't quite picked yours up. I'll have a look through that questions list a little bit later on this afternoon, and if there's anything outstanding, I'll try and drop you an email. So once again, many thanks, and hopefully we'll see you again very soon. Our next session for Report Designer is on Thursday at 11. So hopefully we'll see you then. Many thanks.